But I think if you asked a lot of Flyers fans, they think Chuck would be gone by now. And it seems like that guy. It doesn't seem like he's going anywhere. Is there a chance he goes? Does he have any? Is there a plan in place? Does it feel like there's a plan in place? Like, what is going on, Ant?
That's the thing, and that's the even greater question. Look, deep down, I was told back in the fall that Chuck wasn't going to make it past early to mid January. Like after the World Junior Championships and all those tournaments where the kids are playing and you send your guys out for scouting and stuff, like that was going to be it for him. And he's made it an extra couple months. Now,
why is that?
I don't know. I really think it's tied into what I wrote a few weeks ago. The fact that there are too many longtime Flyers who have enough gravitas to convince Dave Scott to keep things the way they are. That said, deep down, I still firmly believe he will not be in charge of this team for the draft and for free agency in the summer. Like there is part of me, and when I keep conversations I keep having, I keep saying they're not going to let him get past this year. Like I think it's going to happen as soon as the season's over that he'll be fired. That said, I can't say it with 100% certainty. It's just no more because these guys have so much control. And it's not even really Clark and Holmgren as much as a lot of people like to think it is. Those guys are involved, sure, and they have a lot of say in these kinds of decisions. The guy that it's and this no one's said this, I haven't really written it, Bill Barber. And that's because Bill Barber was hired as Dave Scott's personal hockey tutor, for lack of a better term, right? I mean, he's the guy who is teaching Dave Scott hockey, and the idea of how to run a hockey team is Bill Barber. Everything is running through Bill Barber. And what's Bill Barber's track record of being a good hockey executive? He has none. He was a coach here. He was a scouting director first, coach second. He had one good year as a coach. Then he got canned, goes to Tampa, works in their front office when they sucked, right? And then he gets fired there. He's out of hockey for the longest time. And then he gets brought back by Clark as just kind of like, a pro scout. And, he's that way he can be around the team and have a job. One of those old patronage kind of deals. Yeah. And now all of a sudden he's got more power than anybody. And I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Can I spin it in this a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead.
Try my best to. Is it kind of good that the Flyers are so incompetent and they're so bad lately, and everyone's seeing this firsthand? Because you did have that Flyers contingent of fans that were always wearing their orange and black colored goggles, and they were like, "This team can do no wrong." Paul Holmgren gets fired. He gets elevated to a position higher. Just this old boys club, for lack of a better word, of Flyers organization guys. Is that kind of good?
No, well, see, I kind of fall in the middle here, right? And the reason I do is because I always felt that narrative was misguided. Because as we saw in football, as we saw in baseball, as we saw in soccer, just in the past 6 months, it's not easy to win a championship. You have to have luck go your way too. You could be the best at what you do, and if something goes wrong for 1 minute of one game, you can lose, right? So you do need, no matter how good you are, you do need luck on your side a little bit too. So therefore, it's not easy to win that championship. It's not easy to go back after you've been there. The thing of it is the Flyers were at least through 2012, let's say, were very competitive every year. They were in the mix. They were in the conversation. Yeah, they didn't get there. They didn't win it, right? And ultimately, that's the goal. You want to win the championship. But would you rather this, or would you rather, if you had to choose, say, all right, we're not going to win a championship, but would we rather be sucky, awful, terrible all the time, or would we rather be in the conversation and maybe get close to the championship all the time? Like, at least the runs back then were good, right?
Yeah.
So in that sense, to sit there and say that, that's because these guys were in charge, I disagree. I think that those guys did good enough jobs. They weren't the greatest, but they weren't terrible. This is terrible. That's the difference. This is a guy, general manager, who has zero track record of success anywhere he's been, who has never been good at his job, who made a bad team worse in 5 years. I don't know, and he's keeping his job. I don't get it, and I don't understand why it continues to prevail that way.
One question, Kev, before you start: will they clean house? Like, will they clean like the old school Flyers guys, or do these guys have like lifetime contracts?
They should, but I don't think they will. If they do, I will be stunned but happy. Not that, and that's not a knock, because I have good relationships with Paul Holmgren and Bob Clark, and I think that they were great at what they did, or really good at what they did for a long time. But the game has passed them, and they're not in there making decisions on players. I don't want anybody to really think that that's still what's happening. It's not. But they do advise Dave Scott from a big picture of the franchise kind of perspective. And so that's the thing, right? So they're the ones who are sitting there saying to Dave, "Oh yeah, Chuck's doing fine. You give him a break. If this happened, or if this would have happened, then things would be a lot different." That kind of attitude, that kind of mentality's got to go, and that's where they're wrong. So yes, they're not sitting there telling you what players to trade for, which players to draft, but at the same time, they're advising Dave Scott to keep Chuck Fletcher here, and it's hurting the franchise, and so in that sense, they got to go too.